Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Well, today, December 8, marks 13 years since the very first computer game I ever wrote. And So 13 years now. I'll probably write a new game to celebrate the occasion. I have an idea on my mind today. On December 8, 2011, I was getting ready to graduate with my PhD from the Rochester Institute of Technology in Rochester, New York. And so graduation was 2 months away. But there was a big problem. It's a very similar problem to the one that I have today. At the time, I almost didn't want to graduate just yet. The reason being that the graduation ceremony would be held, and I didn't have a girl to cheer me on at the graduation party. I know it sounds silly, but at the time that was a big deal. Today, that's not so bad an issue anymore. I mean, I didn't have a girl cheering me on the first time I won a gold medal at the Computer Gaming Association, right? That was in 2015. I also didn't have a girl cheering me on when I landed my dream job at the community college right now. Those things don't bother me. What does bother me nowadays is not having somebody to be there during life's tough moments, right? COVID 19, a heat wave, not having each other to take care of each other, right? And also trying to go it alone with things, right? Paying the bills alone, and also keeping the lights on alone when I'm working these long hours, right? I teach at a community college. There are so many great things that I could do if I had a life partner taking care of keeping the lights on, right? I don't need to tell you how many more art projects I could do. Just the other day, my it's kind of funny. I teach at a community college, and some of my colleagues there don't feel much about talking about politics in the office, and they were on a heated discussion about divorce in our society and spousal support and child support and all that. They're on a heater about that, and I mentioned that I won't say either way, but I do want to say that a lot of things that I feel very pigeonholed about things that I could do without somebody to keep the lights on, right? So even if I were to marry somebody who didn't bring in an income, she brings in a lot of income, right? And so I was bringing that up to my colleagues, and it was mixed bag how many supported and how many didn't. Um, but I don't take sides. I just bring up how my life looks like. But anyways, at the time, 2011, I didn't have a girl cheering me on when I would graduate, and it bothered me a lot. And I thought about what should I do in the coming months to see if I can get to know a few people. And that's when I started writing an AI for the game of Othello. And before I knew it, I had a pretty strong Othello program that even I couldn't be. It's kind of parallel 13 years ago and 13 years later. 13 years ago, when I started writing Othello, my grandpa passed away, and we were at his funeral. And all I wanted to do was write AI for Othello. And now my grandmother has passed away. And and once again, I'm lonely. And I'm not writing computer games as aggressively as I was back then. Nowadays, I have other hobbies, but it remains to be seen. I was at my grandpa's funeral almost 13 years ago now, and my brother and I got into a huge argument. What had happened was I was writing the Othello program. We were at my uncle's home, and we needed to go meet up with some family members for dinner. My brother was like, "Let's go. Grandpa's family's going to be there." I said, "No, no, you guys could go without me. I'm busy. I got a lot on my mind." And my brother was like, "Are you kidding me? Grandpa just passed away." And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead. Fuck Grandpa." And my brother was so upset. He said, "Fuck you." And he never curses. I think that was one of the only, except for when he was very young, that was the only time I ever heard him say "fuck you." He was 11 years old at the time. The other time I remember him saying "fuck you," he was 2 years old at the time. My dad and I used to argue a lot. I was a very troubled teenager. My dad and I used to argue a lot, and my parents often got into fights over taking care of me. I was 14 years old, and oftentimes arguments would end in both my dad and I shouting "fuck you" at each other. And one day we took my younger brother to he was 2 years old, to a park, and he was going "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," and my mom was so upset. And she was like, look at what your brother is saying. And he said, "Fuck you, fuck you." And I think my dad and I were both very embarrassed about that, and we toned it down a little bit after that. But it wasn't long before we started arguing again. But anyway, it's been 13 years. I'm not sure what computer game I'll write today to commemorate it. That was probably one of the top 10 happiest days in my life when I wrote the computer game, because it gave me a great source of diversion. I never met a girl through the computer games, by the way. It's kind of ironic. I have met a few girls through my art projects. That was one of the best things I ever did for my life. Um, and what else is going on? I competed in my first computer Olympiad in 2013. It was in Yokohama. I was in Yokohama, and I had a great time visiting the Fujuki theme park. That was at the prime of my. You see, after graduation, I had a phase in my life where I felt like uh, I had married myself, and I really didn't date for a number of years. I would feel that way if only the world were a little bit. I was living with my parents, so I didn't have the barriers of living with myself. Right, I had my dinner ready. I wasn't shouldering all of my bills by myself, and so I didn't feel pressured to go out and date. And I had a strong relationship with myself. I miss it. I miss it. And so a lot of times I could take on a lot of things without having somebody to take care of me. Unfortunately, my parents have enough worries. They're older now, obviously, and my grandmother on my father's side has passed away. I can't burden them with that anymore, obviously, and so I had a strong relationship with myself, and it propelled me to do a lot of great things. The computer games, the I I don't have the privilege of doing that anymore, unfortunately. Even my art projects are pigeonholed by. Can you imagine? At least I have my parents to email back home to ask for advice on things, right? But some of these days, one of these days, my parents are going to join my grandparents, and if I'm still married to myself, a lot of things will probably not play out very well. That's where the pressure comes into play, right? It's bad enough that I move out and have to pay my own bills and cook my own dinner. Well, one of these days, I'll send an email and it will go nowhere, right? And that's why I need to find the right life partner. Great grandmother passing away has been a great reminder of that. All right. Actually, there's also a chance that I could join grandma before my parents. I'd actually prefer that. Assuming I don't find the right life partner here on Earth, I can find it in heaven probably a lot better. Life is very tricky when you have to cook your own meals. It really is, right? If you don't, the other thing I might do is find a best friend forever to take care of each other, right? Uh, that will open up a lot of other options too. That's tricky too. I try to do that with. Well, I have roommates, right? Even roommates. half the time we can't even trust each other with toilet paper, with kitchen utensils, with we I lived in a time where we had landlines, and even then we couldn't trust each other with sharing a bill. I had two other roommates. One of them was from India. We opened the phone bill, and there are multiple phone calls to India, and he denies making them. Out of curiosity, I looked up what city those phone numbers were in, and then I went to his social media to check where his family is from, and sure enough, it's the same city. Can't remember what it was, but I asked my roommate, "Hey, how's your family doing?" And I told him the city, and I was like, "How did you know it was from that city?" I was like, I was just reading about you. I kind of boasted how I dated a girl from India at one time, and I thought I could meet somebody through his family and all that. And oh, by the way, you called that city one time, right? And he did. He still denied it. He still denied it. We all had to chip in for that bill. I was upset. And so I decided to call a friend in Poland, and I kept the line connected for like an hour or two that time. Next month, the phone bill comes, and now we have to pay for all the phone calls to India and Poland. And the end result was that all of us were paying for a lot of phone calls that we didn't need or want to make just because everybody else was paying for it. And it's really difficult to find a life partner to take care of each other without all of this drama. And all the while we're hiding the toilet papers in our room and hiding the kitchen utensils because they'll disappear. I would go to cook some fish, and the fish would drip on the floor. Oh, there's no paper towels because my roommate decided that he had to. Not only did he have to hide his own, he had to steal mine on top of it, right? And then I would race out to Target to go clean up the fish before it smelled. I would go to Target and I would buy thousands of packs of paper towels and toilet paper, almost like another pandemic had broken out, just so I could appease my roommate. Hey, let's try to share. I don't mind sharing, but what I do mind is when a disaster happens and there's no toilet paper around the house, right? And somehow that warmed him up, and he decided, oh yeah, I misplaced the rest of that paper towel. Here you go. And so the next day I come back to the kitchen. There's 1,002 packs of toilet paper. That's really nice to see. That's really nice to see. But it's sad that it's so hard to take. But I've learned to be the bigger person. I recently was. I hope I'm reading this right because the people watching may be involved in this. I recently was at a school event at the community college where I teach. I had befriended an older student at one point. She's a graduate student, and on the Discord page, she had blocked me, and I didn't know why. And I knew I would be seeing her at this. I almost didn't want to go, but I decided to go anyway. Actually, I confided with another friend who told me to go anyway and be the bigger person and pretend the block never happened and just be a man and say, hey, I haven't seen you in a while. What game do you want to play? It's a board game event. And long story short, I was pleasantly surprised after the event to see her posts again on the Discord page. Now, nothing crazy. I didn't ask her out on a date or anything. I didn't say anything weird. I think she was overwhelmed with her studies, and maybe I texted her a little bit too much. And so that's that, right? I learned to be the bigger person. And so when toilet paper disappears, to be the bigger person. My landlord sometimes goes into a little bit of a tirade over things. A few weeks ago, I was consumed by heartbreak, and I had left a disaster in the toilet, and I just became the bigger person. And actually, when we now had a bigger problem in the home. Her water pipe had burst. And when she woke up and saw flooding, she thought I had jammed up the toilet, accusing me of damaging the place and all that. And I still was the bigger person, and I told her, good luck with everything. If there's something that I did, and you need to let me know. You know my number. I'll see what I can do to make it good. And I left for work that day. Turned out it was nothing of my doing. And so when I got home, I asked her everything good, and she found out that it was a water pipe burst. It was nothing of my doing. And I was still the bigger person. And this happened just before Thanksgiving, I want to say. Just November 27, 28. My landlord, I live with her. She was like, "Hey, sorry to bother you, but do you happen to have the rent available now? Because she just had to show out insurance deductibles and all that, and I personally felt she had the nerve to do. We're walking on like bare concrete, and she has the nerve to ask me for just even to ask for rent, let alone 3 days early. The nerve, and I didn't want to argue with her at the time because I did have a lot of money in my bank account, and B, I had a lot of other things that I didn't want to disturb the chemistry of. I got a date going on. I'm working on art projects. The last thing I need is to disturb my personal peace. And so I was like, oh yeah, I have it, but I want you to make sure that you take this money and work on the home as soon as possible, because let's face it, this is kind of distracting to the everybody's psyche, right? We all have good things to do. My landlord is a middle school teacher. I teach at a community college. My other roommate works on construction work for a casino. We all got good stuff to do. So, all right, I'll give it to you early, but please make sure to work on the home. So, just I've learned that being the bigger person diffuses a lot of things, right? Well, the last thing I need is to have $40,000 in my bank account and be stingy about being a few days early, argue with her, and then disturb the peace of the tranquility of the place. Not be able to have peace when I go on the date, worried about when I go home, what's my landlord gonna do next, right? And just gotta pick your battles, right? All right, please show your support by disliking this video. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.